And we are officially live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Wes, and we are going through our first and ever ChurchTrac Q&A. So we have had a lot of churches go through, submit their questions, everything from the giving screen to accounting and everything else in between. And so what we're going to do is actually take this webinar to answer all of your questions and just other questions people have submitted. And at the very end, we're also going to give you plenty of time to ask us additional questions, and we'll go through those together. And we also have one of our people hanging out in the chat, as you've probably already seen. So if there's something that does come up during this webinar, feel free to reach out to them as well in the chat. And before I get started, I always like to remind everybody of a couple things. First and foremost, when you're using ChurchTrac, if you ever get stuck, if you ever need help, all you have to do is click that green help button to the top right of the software, and that will bring you to our help section where you can go and submit a support ticket. You can go to our online user guide. We provide a lot of different ways to get help through that. And then also, if you are new to ChurchTrac, we have a ChurchTrac user group that is such a great place to talk to other ChurchTrac users from all around the world. So hop on over to that if you are on Facebook, to the ChurchTrac users group. All right. Well, I'm excited. We have so many questions. This is a very interesting webinar because I'm basically just going to start tackling question after question that everyone submitted here to us. And so let's go ahead, let's get started and start answering some questions, shall we? And starting us off, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up ChurchTrac here because I have a feeling I'm going to have to show some things as we go. And I'm going to answer the first question here that we get. Can I set up multiple ChurchTrac users, and can I limit what they can and cannot do? This is probably one of those common questions that we get in support, as well as when we're doing our workshops individually with churches. And so let me show you real quick how to do that. So I go to Settings on ChurchTrac, and then I go to User Accounts. And this is where I can go and select whichever user I would like to set their permissions for. And from here, I can actually just scroll through here, and I can check whether or not I want this user to be administrator. Just a quick FYI, we only recommend having no more than 2 administrators in your ChurchTrac account, just because an administrator does have the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. And from here, you can also designate all the different screens and parts of the screen that a person has access to. And so from here, if I wanted to, I could say that this person doesn't have access to the giving screen or the accounting screen, but they can access everything else. And then I can also grant this user a permission level for utilizing notes and the calendars as well. So you can actually limit that too within here. So there's a whole lot you can do with permissions. I encourage you just to kind of take a look at it and see what you can permit your people to do and not do. So that's a pretty common question we get. All right, so that was question number 1. Question number 2. Does ChurchTrac offer bulk text messaging? So we get asked this question a lot. The answer is yes, we do. ChurchTrac makes it very easy to text message all of your people. And the way you do that is you actually go to the People screen, and then you go to the Messaging tab. And on the Messaging tab, we just select Send a Text Message. And from here, I can go ahead and send a text message to my entire church. I can send a text message to maybe everyone that has a specific tag, perhaps, or maybe a specific smart list. So maybe all my members at my church, I can do that as well. So that is how you send bulk text messages with ChurchTrac. All right, next question. This is a good one too. What is shape? So we get asked this all the time. What is shape? And most of the times when we get asked this question, it's because someone is taking a look at tags for the first time. So the Shape Ministry Profile, this is something that was made by, I believe it was Saddleback Church a while ago. And it's basically just a way to know all the spiritual gifts and abilities and the heart for ministry that a person has. And so we've actually taken all the Shape Ministry profiles and put those into ChurchTrac in the form of tags. And so to see that, you go to your People screen. And then I click the Tags tab. And by default, ChurchTrac already has all these put in here. If you wanted to delete these, you could. But if I scroll down here, I can see the Shape profile where I have spiritual gifts, heart for ministry, abilities, and personal traits and experiences. And if I select one of these subtags, I can see all the subtags for that specific tag. So we have made tags and subtags for the Shape Ministry profile. So that is Shape. You can learn more about it by doing a quick just web search to kind of learn the ins and outs. And there are so many different Shape Ministry profile tests that you can direct your people to go to fill out, and then have those answers submitted to you as a church leader. From there, then you can put that into ChurchTrac. So that is Shape, and that is how you can use it with ChurchTrac. All right, next question. And this one actually is about text messaging again. We get asked a lot of questions about text messaging, and here's another good one. What is the difference between a dedicated and a shared number? So dedicated and shared number when it comes to text messaging. So let me go back to my people screen, and I'll go back to the messaging tab. And I'll go to send a text message. And so on the account that I'm using right now, I actually have a shared number that I'm utilizing. If I wanted to, I could purchase a dedicated SMS number for my church. And what that means is to have my own number that is just for my church. The benefit of this is to say that you have your own number for your church, and you do get an allotment of text messages every month as well. It does cost additional to have your own dedicated number. Now, as far as the usability and what you get out of it, there really isn't too much of a difference. It just comes down to preference, really. So if your church wants your own dedicated number, you can get that through ChurchTrac messaging. So that's the difference between a dedicated and a shared number. All right, now this next question, this is a really hot topic, especially as of late, just because we're seeing so many things change in the text messaging industry. And this is a question I get asked: why are my text messages not being delivered? I probably get asked this question every other day. So let's dive into this so I can show you. So right here on the messaging screen, by the way, when you're sending out a text message to your people, I always like to show this, is when you're sending a message, like I can just say hello. You can send a message at a specific time. So I always recommend not sending a text message at like midnight or something like that. If you start sending messages like that to your people at really odd hours, you'll have a lot of people opt out. And then whenever you ask them, hey, did you get the message about this? They're like, no, I didn't. It's because they opted out. But that talks about why my text messages aren't getting delivered. I encourage you to check it out. But just some of the reasons why URL shorteners is a big one. So if you are trying to send a text message to your people, and so you're trying to say, hello, everyone, and you start typing out your message, and it starts getting really long. So I'm just going to start typing out a really long message here, or almost there, and boom, I'm done. So now it's starting to let me know, hey, your message is too long. And a lot of people encounter this when they're trying to send like a link to maybe their website or something. And so what I've seen a lot of churches try to do is they try to use a URL shortener so that way they can fit that link in that message. Unfortunately, carriers do not like URL shorteners, more specifically public URL shorteners. So if you are using a URL shortener, ChurchTrac will, for many of them, not even let you use it, just because many carriers by default just don't even let the message get sent. So that's number one. Don't use a URL shortener. Another reason we see text messages not get delivered to people is bad grammar. So when you're sending out your text message to your people, make sure you use good grammar because text messages that have words that are misspelled oftentimes get marked as spam by carriers. So you don't want that to happen. Also, another thing, too many messages. If you're sending your people a lot of messages, especially if these are like repeat messages with the same thing, that looks very suspicious to carriers. So definitely keep that in mind. And then another thing I see is all caps. If you're doing things in all caps all the time, you should probably stop. But when it comes to sending out text messages, if you are using all caps in a text message, that is a dead giveaway to many cell phone carriers like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. When they see that, they oftentimes mark it as spam, and it never gets delivered through the carrier itself. So those are just some of the common reasons, but I encourage you, check out our blog, and we have some additional reasons in there that talk about why text messages don't get delivered. So that is that one. I know that was a kind of a long answer for that, but there's just so many things that go into play when we're talking about text messages not getting delivered. Next question. how do I secure my Connect page? So this is a pretty big one. And for those of you who don't know what Church Connect is, it is a website that's built into ChurchTrac. It is both a website, it's a church app, it's a member portal, it's all these things into one unified platform. And we do need to secure our Connect page just like we would with any website for that matter. Because when we're dealing with having data out there on the interwebs and pictures and all those things, we do want to make our best effort to secure everything that we can. And so one of the first things I always say is don't allow anonymous guest donors. And one way you can do that is by going to your settings on ChurchTrac and giving. And you can actually check this box to require donors to log in. We really recommend that simply because there are some scammers out there that will try to utilize online giving portals for unsuspecting churches. We have seen it occasionally. So definitely first do that. Another thing is make sure that your Church Connect settings prohibit new registrants from accessing the directory. The way you do that, you go to Church Connect on your settings. So Church Connect settings. Zoom in just in case you're watching on a smaller device. And when you click that, we have the Enable the Online Directory, which this is just strictly, preference for your church if you want to have an online directory or not. But if you do, we definitely do not recommend having directory access for people unless you have gone ahead and said that they have access to it. So you can set that up right here in the settings. Another thing is don't include children in the online directory, where we just do not recommend this at all. And so we have this checkbox already here. By default, it's unchecked. We do not recommend including children in an online directory just because of this day and age we live in. So I don't even want to go any further on that. And preventing unmatched registrants from giving online is another one. And so the way you can do that is you can go to your settings on online giving. So going back over to online giving, scroll down and just check this prevent unmatched registrants from giving. Again, we recommend this simply because we have seen scammers in the past that will identify churches that have very loose security and then will try to implement their different financial scams. We don't see it very often, but it does happen. So this will help you definitely keep people from being able to go through that sort of vulnerability. So those are some of the best ways you can secure your Church Connect page, and most of them really just have to do with your directory and online giving, simply because those are the two most common things that we see people do. All right, next question. Why should my donors register for online giving? That kind of goes right back to what I was just saying. You really want to require your donors to register. That way you know who they are. You don't want to have a bunch of people just giving to you and you have no idea who they are, because then it can open up the doors for people that are doing some sort of fraud. So we always recommend that. Can anyone with our text number donate? So ChurchTrac has text giving as well. So on top of being able to give online with credit card and ACH, people can also set up to text give. What that means is it's not necessarily a number that someone can just text a number and then start giving. They have to set it up first through online giving. So they will need to go to your Church Connect page, and then they will need to create an account. So we recommend creating an account there on their Church Connect page. All right. So next question here. How do I track the fees for donor, how do I track the fees the donor is paying for? We actually have a new option in our giving reports that shows this, and we're going to talk more about this very soon. You just be looking out for our blog, and you'll see a blog post on that. So we're super excited about that. How do I set up online giving categories? This is a really big one. So if you are using online giving with ChurchTrac, here's some really good news. If you didn't already know this, is you can give your people the option to give to different categories. And so let me show you how to do that real fast. So I go to giving. I know some people think it's supposed to be on the settings screen. It's actually on the giving screen. And then I go to my categories tab. And then from here, I just select the category that I wish to edit. So maybe I could say, oh, let's do the building campaign. I just click building campaign. And then from here, I can check whether or not I want it to be used for online giving. And so right now, by default, this particular category is enabled for online giving. Now, let's say I don't want this to be online giving. Maybe I'm trying to just kind of streamline things in my church in categories and I don't want to include this one. Then all I have to do is just select no. And then from here on out, that category is no longer visible to people that are trying to give online to our church. So that's how you do that. All right, let's see what the next question is. How do I record an in-kind donation? This is a really good question. So for those of you who aren't familiar with in-kind donations, they're pretty awesome. It's whenever someone gives something to our church or ministry that is not money. Maybe someone donates like brand new furniture to your church office. Maybe it's a church member that happens to be an electrician and you had some severe electrical situation happen and they said, hey, I'll fix it for free. My company will come out there and we'll fix it. Don't worry about paying us. That's an in-kind donation. And so the way we're giving screen, and I'll just go ahead and add a batch giving date here for today. And then we'll enter the contribution. And then I'll just search the person's name here in this situation. We'll say, oh, Matt. So Matt Barker, he has graciously donated his time to fix our lighting system in the sanctuary. And so in this situation, we're going to actually assign a $0 amount. So even though this may be worth $500, we are actually going to put a $0 amount because as a church, we cannot assign a dollar amount to an in-kind donation. Just a quick FYI. Learn more about it on our blog post about in-kind donations. It is very intensive and tells you everything you needed to know and everything you probably didn't even want to know. But it's right there in our blog. And then I always recommend having a category for in-kind donations. That way, it just kind of keeps things separated out. So I can just scroll down to in-kind donations. In your in-kind donations category, your total is always going to be zero since you're applying a $0 amount. And then tax deductible, yes. And then in the memos section, I would actually recommend putting in whatever that in-kind donation was in the memo. So in this situation, let's say Matt fixed electrical in worship. And then just add this contribution. That way, we have a record that Matt fixed this, and we know when it was done, and at any time we can generate that. So that is how you record in-kind donations in ChurchTrac. And again, we always assign a $0 amount for that. All right. Next question. Oh, this is a pretty good one. How do I rearrange categories, lists, tags, accounts, payees? I often get asked this question by people who are using our software for the first time, or they've been using it a while, but maybe their computer monitor has the brightness set too low or something like that. And so what we're talking about here is whenever you're looking at your categories, for example, there are a lot of sections in the software in which you have like lists of things. You can actually move these things around, and the way you do that is simply by just hovering over that little arrow to the right, and then I can actually move these things around. And so that is how you move around categories. When you're planning worship, you can move around songs or elements, things like that. So that's how you do that. The double arrows, we see it in payees as well. All right, next question here. How do I get birthdays to show up on the public calendar? You don't. I mean, you technically, I guess you could figure out a way to do it, but we don't recommend it. Here's why. It is not a good idea to put people's exact birthdays in the wild online. And the reason for that is just because we live in a day and age where identity theft, it's real, it happens all the time. And if someone has someone's birthday, they are just one step closer to stealing their identity. Now, I know a lot of people, between Facebook and social media, we're putting things up about our birthday and stuff. But it's just not a good idea to just broadcast to the world a calendar of everybody's birthday at your church, just because all it takes is one person to be able to use that information and combine it with other information to do something nefarious. So we don't recommend that. All right. And how do I get kids' names listed in my picture directory? This is another one that we get asked that we kind of say we don't recommend that. And again, it's just the world we live in. We really don't recommend putting out pictures of minors on the internet. If you want to talk to our support team more about this and why we shouldn't do this, just reach out to them and they'll help you out with that. All right. This was one I was just asked the other day. How do I permanently disable hints/tips? So this is something that I see happen a lot with ministries who are using like an incognito browser. So if you're using ChurchTrac, and I don't have it showing on mine, but if you're wondering, why do these tips keep popping up? I've been using the software for like 6 months and it keeps showing me these tips. I keep saying I don't want to see them anymore and they keep popping up. It's probably because you're using a private browser / incognito mode, which I see a lot of ministries do that just because they don't want the browser to save any of the settings and everything, especially if it's like a public computer. So if you are always in a private mode or incognito, it's going to keep showing those just because it doesn't know that you have been going to it every time. It just keeps thinking you're new. So that's why. Oh, man. How do I email from ChurchTrac? That's a loaded question. So ChurchTrac gives you a lot of different options when it comes to sending out emails. So at the end of the day, email is a whole nother bear for another day. But you can actually go to your settings, and then you go to your admin settings, I believe. Yep. And then the bulk email settings. And this is where you can actually go ahead and configure your settings for whatever provider that you are wanting to configure ChurchTrac to work with. So ChurchTrac does work with Mandrill, Amazon, SendGrid, SparkPost, and you can also just paste things right into your own email application if you ever want to do that. And using something like Google Workspace, which used to be called, what was it called, Matt? So I think it was called, G Suite. That's what it used to be called. So if you're still remembering G Suite, Google Workspace, same thing. We recommend that right now just because it seems to be the easiest way to get churches up and running and having their own professional email. But if you want to reach out to our team and kind of learn more about configuring that, you can do that. Because once you have it all configured in your bulk email settings, then when you go to your people screen and you go to messaging, then you can send out that email to your people. And you can see I've got a beautiful first email there. Hi, first name, blah. So that's sending emails. All right. What do we got here? Another one. So many good questions that people have been bringing in here. How can I see those who are scheduled for future events? So when you're using the worship screen, I'll show kind of the first way. I always recommend using side-by-side when it comes to just scheduling people, like a month out anyways. And so like when you go to your worship and scheduling screen, and you can see I've got a lot of random things going on in mine just from testing things out. But I will pull up one of our outlines here. And so I'm on a worship outline. If I scroll down, I can actually go to side-by-side. So if I click side-by-side, if you're unfamiliar with side-by-side, this is super cool because it lets you bring up to 4 services all at once. And so I will just start loading up. Let's see, we're on 10-3, so we'll do 10:10, 10:17, and 10:28. And there we go. So I've got a bunch of services lined up here. And then from here, as I scroll down, I can actually see all of the people that are scheduled to serve. And so you see I've got no one scheduled here, so if I wanted to, I could actually just start copying and pasting people over, or I could start adding people right from here. So that's one way that you can see people like for the next month per se. Now, if you're wanting a way just to easily print something out, like have a sort of report, we actually have something like that coming. So stay tuned for that. We'll be talking more about that in our blog post we release about our fall update. So awesome. All right, another question here. Ooh, this is a really good one. Okay. This is one of those questions that we get asked kind of at the same time of the year every year, and you'll know why. So how do I bulk change students from one grade level to another? This is a question that we get asked pretty much, I would say, right before the school year starts or towards the end of the year, depending on when churches graduate all their students. So to do that, you go to your people screen here, Now, there's a couple ways we can do it. I want to show you the preferred method if I can. So the preferred method is utilizing the birthdays and the age categories. So that way you just let the software do it all for you. So highly encourage recording the birthdays for all your children or just everybody for that matter. So that way you can auto-assign age categories. And let me show you what that looks like. Smart list. Let's just go to, I thought I had one. Yep, all the children. So here's all the children here in my database, and I've got birthday, age category. And so what I can do for this particular child here, let's say it's time to graduate these children up to the next one, then I can just edit info, and then I scroll down just a hair, and do you see age category, how it's like a clickable link? I can actually click this. This is where you update your age categories, by the way. So ChurchTrac has all these built in, but you can actually customize these out. So maybe if you're using a more simplified age category, if you're a smaller ministry, or if you just have specific ages that are different than these ones listed, you can easily edit these and change them if you'd like. And then from here, I can actually just click Auto Assign Age Categories based on current age. And this is going to do this for everybody in your database. So if I click this button here, the age category was updated for one name. It only updated one name just because I did this the other day, so that's probably why. So if you had a whole slew of students that, it was that time, instead of having to do that in manually, which is like the worst. So that way you can just do it in a couple clicks. Now, if you are utilizing tags and you are assigning all of your children by tag to different classes, then another way you can do that is by actually just bulk edit. So you can select all the children. Let's say I'm just going to randomly select all these children here. So I've checked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names. And let's say I need to move these 5 to a specific tag. I check them all. And then I a little button here. It looks like wheel. I'll just zoom in so everybody can see that. And so when I click that, I can then actually add the selected tag or remove a selected tag. And so this is really handy if you're utilizing tags. I see this more so for discipleship groups and like Sunday school classes, but this is a really easy way to switch everybody that has one tag to another tag, so that way you're not having to do it one by one, because that would take a long time if you have a large database. So that is bulk edit. So that's a really good question. I've seen just in terms of something that can save you a lot of time, which is something that we're super big at here at ChurchTrac, is helping ministries really just save time and simplify ministry. We try to make it easy for you. So that was a lot of good questions that people kind of asked ahead of time for this. There were a lot of questions that we did receive that honestly, they were like pretty intense questions that were very specific about like something in accounting or something in giving. And so you should have already received, one of our support people has probably already reached out to you and answered that question for you. So what I want to do now that we've kind of gotten a lot of people that have submitted these questions and gone through a bunch of these, let's go through and just kind of open the floor for anybody in the chat that has a question that maybe they just now thought of or didn't get through in time, and we can tackle that together. So while you're thinking through some of your questions, I'm going to ask my team if any questions come through, they can submit them to me right now in my chat. And so while I'm waiting on those, I just want to encourage everybody, if you are not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, you should totally check it out. Just such a great place to learn how to use the software. We put so many step-by-step videos, both videos that are just a couple minutes long, showing you how to do just one thing specifically. And then we also have like previous webinars, ones just like this, where we're attacking a certain, not attack, but we are diving into a specific feature and just showing how to use it in its entirety. And so you can check out all those previously recorded webinars right there on our YouTube channel. And just click the subscribe button. That way, whenever we come out with our new videos, you'll get notified, and it's a happy day. So that is the YouTube channel. All right. So I see a question here. Let's tackle this one. I'm interested more in the giving page for tithes an offering. More on the giving page for tithes and offerings. So what exactly you're interested in? I need more detail of what it is you're trying to accomplish so I can answer your question here. So how to run a report with just names and email address. Okay, we can tackle that. So how to run a report with just names and email address. This is actually a custom report that you're going to create. And this is a feature that a lot of people don't even realize we have just because we have so many built into ChurchTrac already that people love that oftentimes they're not needing to do anything custom. But the good news is you can make custom reports in ChurchTrac. So the way you do that, you go to your people screen and then you click this custom reports tab. And then from here, you can create a custom report. So like I'll just say create a new report. And we're going to say this is Laura's report. Well, I won't use names. We'll just say custom report. And then from here, I can start adding all the fields that I want in this custom report. And so looking here, so you want to run a report with just names and email addresses. So what I would do is my first field would be maybe first name. And maybe the next field I probably want to have like last name too. So I can add another field to this report. And then I'll do last name. And then add another field. See how fast this is? I mean, you can build out a report super quick with this. And then I'll just scroll down, and I have the email somewhere. Where'd it go? Email address. There we go. First name, last name, email address. And now I'm ready to just generate this report. Here's the other cool thing. Let's say you're in a situation where you're wanting to export this data out to something. Maybe you're needing to have an Excel sheet for this because you're needing to get this Excel sheet to someone else because they're doing something with it. Then you can actually download a CSV and be able to throw that in Excel or Google Sheets or I think Apple's is Numbers, whichever one you want to use. So good question. All right, so I see another question here. Okay, I see another question about being able to track certain items in ChurchTrac, freezer/pantry items in ChurchTrac. That's pretty specific. Reach out to our support team on that because I'm more so wanting to get like just kind of general questions here, not like dive into something specific just to your ministry. So yeah, reach out to support team and they will help you out super fast for that. Let's see here, another question. So the accounting, so William's asking the account and budget tab show all assets and liabilities as a total balance. Why is that? Let me make sure I read that again. And so William is asking, the account/budget tab show all assets and liabilities as a total balance. Why is that? So I'm going to double check with our support team. So they're doing it. There we go. So the reason for that, William, is because this is a cash basis program. So if you are kind of unfamiliar, maybe looking at accounting for the first time in ChurchTrac, ChurchTrac is a little bit different accounting tool than some other tools you may be used to. ChurchTrac is what we call cash basis accounting, or being that it's a accounting program, we just design it in a way to where it's not double entry. And so it's only going to show the totals there. So that's why that is. If you need more, just more reasonings behind that or just want to learn more about that, please reach out to us, William, and we'll be more than happy to walk through that. And you can even schedule a phone call, which, by the way, if you ever, I always like to plug this just because this is just such a neat thing that our support team has implemented a little while ago. If you ever run into a situation where you are trying to figure out some things in the software, just like, I have so many questions and I don't even have the ability to just sit here and type out all these questions. I really wish I could just talk to somebody. Then you can actually schedule a phone call with our team. It doesn't cost anything. We don't charge for support. So yeah, definitely reach out to us, schedule a phone call, and find a time that works best for you. And our team will reach out to you and we will work through it together and help you out. All right. Do we have any other questions? There's some very good questions. I think we got so many good questions that came in before this webinar as people were kind of submitting them. that I'm glad we were able to kind of sift through those and address all of them. Okay, so giving screens. Oh, so it looks like we're talking about more beyond a custom report. So you're wanting to know about custom giving reports and adding different categories. And let's dive into this kind of more together, because I feel like this is an opportunity where we can learn a little bit more about your ministry and kind of how you're running your accounting and everything. So that way we can just kind of better understand what it is you need and give you the right tool. Because ChurchTrac, has so many tools built into it. I want to make sure we're giving you the right one and not just something that's a workaround there. Okay, here's a good question. So how do you run a report of each person's year to give them for tax purposes? So what we're talking about here is contribution statements. How do you generate a contribution statement? Let me show you how to do that. And so many of us are getting ready towards the end of this year. Depending on when you're watching this video, it's always the end of this year at some point. You're wanting to generate contribution statements for all of your people. It's something that we as ministries need to get to our people, so that way they can itemize things if needed and all that good stuff. So you go to your giving screen, and then you go to the reports tab. And the contribution statement report is actually the first report right there built into the software. And you want to pick your start date and your end date. So oftentimes in the church setting, we're doing the start date of January 1st and the end date of December 31st. And so I'll just select December 31st. And then when we're printing out a contribution statement or just generating a PDF to email, whatever it may be, we can actually print a report for each family or individual. And let's say I just want to do every individual. We can do that. I can even include a pledge campaign summary. So if you are using pledges, you can do that in ChurchTrac. And then I just click Generate Report. And we're done. I just generated every single contribution statement for every single person at our church. So it's really that fast. It's kind of crazy. So now you can actually just print these out and send them to your people. So that's how you generate a contribution statement. If you check out our online user guide, if you need some more details on how to do all that and everything, we've got all that right there for you too. All right. Do we have any other questions? Let's see, I'm asking my team. I'll give the last. All right, so no other questions. Well, I'll give everyone just a free moment just in case there may be one other question that comes in. Again, I just want to remind everybody about our ChurchTrac group, ChurchTrac users. It's a Facebook group. And if you're on Facebook, it is such a great place to go. I've seen so many churches. It's just amazing to me how we have so many ChurchTrac users all around the world, thousands of ChurchTrac users, in fact. And I'll see a ChurchTrac user ask, hey, we're trying to design our page and trying to make it look great. And I've seen some other people that make really great Connect pages. How do you do that? And then someone else from another country jumps in and says, oh, this is how I did mine. What do you think of this? And it's just so neat to see this collective of people helping each other out. So I encourage you, if you're looking for a great community where you can just learn more about the software and ask questions and just even go beyond the software, just about ministry in general, then the ChurchTrac user group is definitely the place you want to be. So check it out. All right, well, I don't think we have any more questions. But my team actually just submitted a question to me that we actually get all the time. They wanted to add it in here last second. So they want to show how to add giving categories. Okay, so we can show that. So on the giving screen, you go to categories. And it's actually just right here, create a new category. This is where you're going to go create your giving categories. Now, ChurchTrac does come by default with a lot of very common categories, such as like general offerings. In-kind donations is actually one I had to create because it wasn't built in by default. But you just click Create New Category, and then from here, you would create that category. Now, I know some people are looking at some of my categories, and they see some that say like miscellaneous income, missions income, youth ministry income. The reason why I called some of these income and I have all these here is just because this is going in tandem with the accounting side of ChurchTrac. And there are a lot of situations where you need to have both income categories and expense categories. I don't really have time to delve into what all that looks like and how to do it all, but I encourage you to reach out to us if you need help with that. One thing that our team is really big on here is being proactive with support. And so if you are getting into accounting right now and you've watched the videos and you've kind of built things up and you're just wondering, did I do this right? I think I did it right, but it'd be cool if someone could maybe look at it real quick and just kind of give me that confirmation. Then just create a support ticket and just tell our team, hey, I went and set up accounting and everything, but I just want to make sure I did this right. Can you just look at it for me? They'll be more than happy to do that for you. And we've some situations where our team has looked at it and said, oh, what is this? And they're like, I don't know. I just created it, and then we're able to fix it. So please reach out to our team if you do have any questions that matter. All right. Well, I think that is all the questions we have. So many great questions that everyone brought to the table. And again, if we didn't answer your question here on live air, the chances are you probably already got an email from our support team to answer your question or to maybe even set up a phone call, just because we wanted to make sure every question was answered, even if it was a question that was something that was more intense and we had to go one-on-one with you on. So there we go. Well, for joining us. We have so many webinars, by the way, that we have lined up for October. We are coming into October, getting ready heavily to talk about accounting. And so if you're new to show how to set up accounting. We also have another webinar a week after that where we kind of get into the core features of accounting and how to do some of these common things like printing out checks or attaching a like PDF statement or something to a transaction. And then later on, we're going to talk about budgets too. So stay tuned for all that's happening later on in October. Till then, you all have a fantastic rest of your week. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. See ya.